Have you ever been in a crisis? It's a rhetorical question, but obvious. Answer is kind of obvious. Do you remember what the crisis was about? And do you remember how it felt? Does crisis bring up some memories in you? Maybe crisis is an intense word. So have you ever felt scared? Have you ever felt anxious? Have you ever felt that what you're going through is complicated? I think there is some commonality of experience and emotions. In the passage that we read today in Exodus, the Israelites were going through something that was very complicated. They were going through a crisis. And to give a little background and context to the story, we're going to go way back to Jacob. Do you remember the time when Jacob wrestled with an angel? Jacob was in a crisis of his life. He was running away from his uncle Laban after taking his 2 daughters, slaves, grandchildren, livestock. And the next day, he was about to face his brother Esau, the one he has taken the firstborn son's blessings from. So he was between a rock and a hard place, to say the least. And the night before he was about to face his brother Esau, Jacob sends his family forward and the gifts and the livestock, and he spends the night alone in the desert. And as he is spending the night alone in the desert, an angel comes to him, and they wrestle all night. And during the night, when Jacob was alone, he wrestles with this angel. Now, the name Jacob means the one who deceives, or the one who cheats. So we could guess what Jacob was doing as he was wrestling with this angel. And he was named Jacob because he was grabbing at the heels of his brother Esau as he was coming out of his mother's womb. And during the wrestling match, because Jacob was being so stubborn and resilient, the angel hits Jacob's hips and he dislocates it. And even then, Jacob does not let go of the angel. And Jacob says, "I will not let you go unless you bless me." And the angel says, "Your name will no longer be Jacob, but Israel, because you have struggled with God and with men, and you have prevailed." And the angel blesses him. And this story has been the story of Israelites for thousands of years. Different settings, different characters, different times, but more or less the story of perseverance. And honestly, I think this is a story that we could all relate to. I think we could relate to Jacob in that when we are in crisis, we're grasping at the straws, just trying to hold on for our dear life, asking, praying, and wrestling for a response to our prayers. In our times of need, we ask for that blessing. We ask for that miracle. And sometimes we get damaged, like Jacob. Sometimes the crisis hurts us. The crisis hurts our families. And the crisis leaves us a little different than before. Now, this was the turning point for Jacob, a turning point where Jacob had to make a choice. Even when he was damaged on his hips, do you still hold on to this man and ask for that blessing? Or do you let go because you were damaged? Jacob didn't let go. And likewise, we should not let go of God in our times of crisis. When we are wrestling in the middle of the night in that cold desert-like place, crying, grasping at the straws, we should not let go of God because He is right there with us. I believe and encourage all of us to hold on to God before, during, and after crisis. We got to continue to wrestle with God and hold on to Him because our perseverance, our choice to hold on to God even after it damages us. God will bless us and call us by God's name. Now, this is an important part of Israel and the story of the Bible and our story, but that's not the only option that is presented. In our story today, in Exodus 17, the Israelites are once again in a crisis. The fact is, the Israelites have gone through a crisis after crisis after crisis. So far, Moses has led them out of Egypt after the 10 plagues, and they're in the desert, and the Egyptians chase them, but Moses, with the help of God, parts the Red Sea. Moses and the Israelites walk through, and afterwards, God closes them up again, and the Egyptians drown. And the Israelites were hot during the day in the desert and cold during the night, and God provides them with pillars of cloud by day and pillars of fire by night. And when the Israelites were hungry, God sent them manna and quail from heaven. And when Israelites were thirsty, God sent them forth water from the rocks. And in the beginning of our passage today, in Exodus 17 and 8, it says, "Then Amalek came." As if to say, we're going through crisis after crisis, but another crisis comes. So until this point, God has been providing for all the needs, and God has been fighting for all their battles. So in effect, the Israelites so far hasn't really done anything. They were just following. And when you don't have to do anything for yourself, and everything comes to you so easily, you kind of turn into these Israelites who kind of run their mouth, to say the least. And they complain to Moses and God, and they quarrel with him. And in Exodus 17:2, Moses says to them, "Why do you quarrel with me? Why do you test the Lord?" Yeah, they were out of Egypt and in the desert, and it sucked. But they were getting things even when they don't have to work for them. They were still complaining. And of course, Moses does his thing and make the waters from the rocks. And just before our passage today, it says in verse 8, Exodus 17, verse 8, it says, he names the rocks, he names the place where the waters came forth, Massah and Meribah, because the Israelites quarreled and tested the Lord, saying, "Is the Lord among us or not?" A place of miracle, named after a complaint. Even though they have experienced miracles after miracles in their crisis after crisis, they still complain and question whether God is with them or not. And I want us to ask this question: can we relate to Israelites or not? I think a little bit. I don't know how you handle your crisis, but for me, in my experiences of miracles and crisis, and when this small, insignificant disturbance interrupts my life, I'm like, God, why is this happening? Where are you? Like I said, I don't know how you handle your crisis or what kind of questions you ask God, but I think we can all relate to Israelites a little bit. And this passage in Exodus 17 is the turning point for the Israelites, because Israelites do not complain here, and Israelites choose to fight. There is a lot of things that are going on in this passage, and there are some things that are mentioned in this passage for the first time. This is the first time characters Hur and Joshua are introduced, and this is the first time an enemy other than Egyptians are introduced. And this is the first time Israelites are fighting a battle, and this is the first time they win in a battle. And this is the first time the Israelites build an altar in the name of the Lord, and this is the first time God says to Moses, write this as a reminder in a book and recite it. So this is the first time a textual record keeping is mentioned and an oral tradition is mentioned. And most importantly, though not stated specifically, this is the first time Moses relies on somebody other than Aaron. This is the first time Moses relies on somebody like Hur and Joshua and even the Israelites. Now, I laid a lot of firsts that were mentioned in this passage, and unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to get to all of them. And I encourage you and empower you to think about them, meditate upon them, and what it means to you, yourself, and your family and the church. But as for today, I want to hold on to this theme where we can imagine our future stories together and how we handle crisis together. There is a lot to be learned from how Jacob handled his crisis, how he wrestled with God alone in the desert, sending forth his families and just refused to letting go of God despite being injured. And yeah, we could do that in our times of crisis and damage. We could do that alone. And I'm not saying that is wrong or that is I just want to say that is not the only option that is available to us. There is another possibility, another future story that we could think about, and we can learn from how Moses handled his crisis. Moses delegated duties. He trusted people. He trusted Joshua to lead the battle. He trusted Israelites to fight the battle. And he trusted Hur and Aaron to be with him on the hilltop. And Moses says, "Tomorrow I will stand on the hilltop with the staff of God in my hand." And he believed. Moses believed in God in his crisis. Moses did not complain. Moses did not wrestle with God. Moses did not grasp at the foot of God and just ask for a miracle. He just merely took his staff, what God has given him, and raised it up on the hilltop. And even when Moses grew tired and his arms were lowered, and even when the Israelites were losing in battle, Moses did not complain. Moses trusted God. And it looks like Aaron and Hur trusted in God and Moses as well, because they stayed with Moses on the hilltop, watching Israelites losing battle, and they helped him side to side, held Moses' hands up. Moses trusted and relied on Joshua and the Israelites to fight the battle, and Moses trusted Aaron and Hur to be with him on the hilltop. They were all together in this crisis. And as you know, Israelites were not great people. Israelites were the people who were complaining to God, quarreling with Moses, and giving him a hard time, giving Moses anguish in his heart. And Israelites were at a great disadvantage. The people were undisciplined, underarmed, they were tired from trekking through the desert, and they were apt to complain. And if you remember, Moses sent 12 spies later to scout the land of Canaan, and only 2 of them came back with positive and encouraging report. And the 10 of them were complaining, negative, low self-confidence and low self-esteem in the people of Israelites and their capabilities. Israelites had a losing mentality. Yet, these are the type of people Moses trusted in his time of crisis. Beloved church community, what are we going to do in our time of crisis? Are we going to be like Jacob, wrestle with God alone in the middle of the night, taking damage, but still holding on, asking for a miracle? Or are we going to be like Moses? Yes, I understand it is easier to do it alone, by yourself. There's less drama, less gossip. There's going to be less people knowing about it, talking about it. And sometimes it does feel like it's a better option to handle crisis by yourself. But there is another choice. So the New Testament epistle that I shared with you today was from 1 Corinthians chapter 12. And the theme of that is that we are body of Christ. No matter who's in that body of Christ, no matter what the people are doing, no matter they're complaining, no matter they're from our different socio-political, whatever location, we are one body of Christ. And somebody said, if you want to go fast, go it alone. If you want to go far, go together. Beloved church community, this is a long journey. We're in a marathon together. There may be a time when you are holding up your staff and your arms get tired, and you kind of wish someone was there to support you in your time of crisis. And I believe our imagination and future stories will be fuller, more abundant, and more beautiful if we handle our crisis together. Do you believe that we are a body of Christ? I know it is hard to trust God and trust people in the middle of crisis. It does feel like we can't trust anybody, and especially if they are anything like the Israelites, complaining, quarreling, unfaithful, disloyal, having losers mentality. Yeah, I get that. It feels like we can't trust people sometimes, but we got to remember that we are the body of Christ. We're all different, but we are all the same. We're all created in the image of God. We're all in different process and journey, but we are all on the same road to sanctification. We're all in this together. And I think there is a poetic beauty in how Moses handled his crisis. Despite all that Israelites have done to Moses, Moses trusted them, relied on them in his time of crisis. Beloved church community, I think we're going through a crisis right now. There is a pandemic going on. The country is divided, politically, socially, economically dislocated. There are lots of natural disasters happening all around the world. And in the middle of all this, some of you may be going through personal crisis of your own. Money issues, health issues, relationship issues, work issues, school issues, you name it. Whatever it is, it sucks. It's tough. But how are you handling your crisis? Are you handling it like Jacob, alone? Or how are you handling it like Moses? I know it sucks to be vulnerable. I've been vulnerable. But I think God is giving me this message to remind me, myself, and our church community to trust God and to trust people. Yeah, we can wrestle with God, begging for His blessings and miracles in the middle of our crisis. But we can come to Him together with our staff in hand, with Aaron and her by our side. Our arms get tired sometimes. Not just arms, our body, physically, mentally, emotionally. But here, like Aaron and her on the side, I believe in this time and space, the reason why our church is together is to help hold us, our hands up in our times of crisis. I want to say thank you to the Church of Ponce and Highland, and Pastor Mimi and Pastor Colin, and all the ministry team, and I wanted to say thank you to the Beacons Morning Bible Study Group and the Liberations Group. I want to say thank you to the church for welcoming me, accepting me, and supporting me in my time of crisis, because I was in a crisis. It may not be like Jacob and Moses, but I was in a crisis, and I'm sorry, I don't think I'm going to share what it is. Maybe you could ask me, and I'll share. But the church community has reminded me of what it means to be body of Christ. And I love this church, and I love you all, and you are all in my prayers. And I want to close today's message with this. One of the most important things you can do on this earth is to let people know that they are not alone. In our spiritual battles, let us trust in God's power while also seeking the help and encouragement of fellow Christians. Rather than viewing ourselves in competition with other believers, let us carry each other's burden with eager expectation that God will move in each of our lives, because God is moving and God is here with us. So let us remember this and hold on to this, that we're here for one another. We're here to lift each other's arms up when they can't lift it by themselves. Let us hold each other's hands up and let us be there. And let us be there for one another. God bless you.